set up our warehouse, and the people in our parts department, they're right next to the warehouse door. So if they need to look at something, pull something off the shelf, if a customer needs additional pictures of it, it's right there. We've really only hit the tip of the iceberg as far as everything that we purchase. We're adding 20 to 30 items a day, but there's another 2,000 to 3,000 items that we need to add. We'd like people to understand that we're not just a parts guy answering a phone, entering a part number, that we really know the cars, that we can help, that you're not just buying the part from us, you're buying the assistance. You're getting the knowledge and the help of what part's the right part for your car, how to put it on, where it goes, a little bit more than just here's your part, thank you kind of thing.
At one of the most prestigious places in all of world motorsports, it's the season finale of Spec-5 World Tour at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We've been covering this championship all season long here on HJBC. The racing amongst these Miatas has been so thrilling, so exciting. And tonight, the final round, a champion will be crowned, but it's also a special round in another way. It's the only 90-minute double-length race of the season, making it a double pit stop race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the road course. David Haynes here with Devin Peters, Michael Derby producing, and they're about to get into qualifying. And before they do, we say thank you to those that have supported us all season long. RC Sales, Porsche Parts. Go to rcsales.com for all that is Porsche. RC has thousands of parts available for virtually any Porsche model, providing high-quality service with a personal approach and with worldwide shipping available. You won't need to go anywhere else. Visit rcsales.com today. Well, Devin, you and I have both been here. Michael Derby's been here. We love this place. It's got a very, very, very special aura around it. And it's, from what I've seen, going to be some very interesting racing. You've got two very long straights connected by some little twisty bits.
Yep. You're exactly right. But I can't help but remember entering this track at 5:30 in the morning as the gates are opening and driving under the tunnel, on race day. There really is something, it feels like almost holy about entering the grounds here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So it only makes sense that we're ending the season on such an important track, such a special track. And honestly, this road course pretty well suited to these cars. I expect we're going to see them slicing and dicing up and down the field today.
So we are into qualifying right now. It very much looks like Camden Hibbett, one of our race-winning drivers of this season.
Yeah, one of our young guns too. Plenty quick out there, and look pretty quick in qualifying too. Final race of the season, there'll be a lot of points considerations to look at too, and we'll get to some of that during the broadcast here today. But he's definitely up there. I want to say second in the points right now in the Pro Series.
It is a little bit of those how do you look at it kind of situations, given that there's 13 rounds to the championship and you drop your two worst, which is to say your 11 best results count. Always kind of makes it tricky to look at, saying, okay, well, if someone came through and won every race they were a part of but missed a couple, versus someone who was consistent at a lot of rounds, you kind of come into this final race and you're like, what they each need out of this race can be different. But as they're starting their first flying laps of qualifying, we'll take a look at how the points stand at the moment. And so in the pro points, Ronnie Coates, things are looking good for him. Head of Michael Coates, Camden Hibbett, Rui Coimbra, Eugenio Polici, Ken Copeland, Trevor Roy, Sean Hayes, Geordie Fike, and Odyssey Adams Jr. Camden Hibbert, though, will likely be ahead of Michael Coates by the end of this one, just based off of the way that those drops are calculated. Camden's highs have been just a little bit higher, and we've praised Michael Coates all season long for his sort of consistency and his desire to, finish top 5, finish on the podium ahead of, doing anything too risky too early. And then in the open class, things are looking very good there for Tom Athon, who's currently on screen as well, ahead of Andrew Gilliland. Gilliland still has a chance, though, so we'll see what happens. A lot can happen at Indianapolis in 90 minutes, that's for sure. And Andy Kosick there in third from Paulo Coimbra, Charles Vaccaro, Josh Olsen, Jose Gonzalez, Orlando Herald, Derek Putnam, and Daniel Hall.
Yeah. And as we were checking out the points there, the first few drivers crossed the start-finish line to set our first flying laps, and Rice Puto was absolutely flying out there. 42.1 puts him 0.6 up on the second place of Andrew Gilliland right now through this first lap of qualifying. Of course, 4-lap qualifying session here, so we'll expect those tires to keep coming in for the second lap here. Rice Puto's been out there not super consistently this season, but every time he's showing up, he's been pretty quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So qualifying format still the same as every other round, kind of bar the Nordschleifer, I suppose. 15 minutes of qualifying, 4 laps, and well, it's a relatively compact road course here. Obviously, it's entirely within the confines of the 2.5-mile banked oval that hosts the 500. And even then, about half the space is off limits because there's a couple of holes for golf around here as well. So it is a little tight, a little short, but I guess that's kind of what you want to expect out of what might be the OG Roval.
Yeah, as they come through turn number 2 here, you can almost see the museum in the background, and you can also see Rice Puto getting it kind of wrong as he spins the tires up really good on the exit of 2. Nope, sorry, that was the exit of the final turn. My bad. Got my lefts and rights confused there.
Particular run to that yard of bricks, that famous yard of bricks, before then coming back across to the racing line and looking to start another lap. Very aggressive curbs in places around here. Turn 1, that's one of them. He gets almost 2 wheels on that. Then you're into more of a traditional sort of road course part of the track here. It turns 2 and 3, where he almost runs it off the road, I think. Not optimal there, that grass. Not very grippy at all. Turn 4, pretty traditional. But then you get into this chicane here where there's another one of those brutal curbs. And at the sort of S's at the end of this back straight also some mighty, mighty curbs.
Yeah, you can kind of see some of the drama we might be expecting today, though, with 112 degrees Fahrenheit on the track today. These cars might actually suffer a little bit under the high temperatures, and these tires are certainly going to suffer today. So we've been a pretty tire-free kind of series so far this year, but I expect we might burn through a few sets today.
Yeah, it's hot. And it's a long race, and also it's a little bit hot. Here's Andrew Gilliland gunning for the Open Class Championship, but it's going to need not only a really, really good drive and really good strategy tonight, it's going to need something to go wrong for Tom Athon.
Yeah, the drama queen in me notes the contact he and Tom had in the last race. That led to what looked like it was going to be a pretty significant differential. Didn't end up being. But I also noticed that Tom is qualifying not quite as quick as Gilliland is here today. Tom's 43.1 right now. Gilliland just crossed the line with a 42.4. And that puts nearly 10 positions between them. So there's still a little bit to play for here if Gilliland can hold this together.
Looking at Tom Athon at the moment. As he comes around to another one of the bigger braking zones on the lap here. What's the short shoot between 1 and 2 for the oval configuration, but then you turn into this final complex of corners with pit entry on the right. Hey, there's a big sign out there just to help you if you don't know. And that's a place that they're going to need to use twice during the race, of course.
Mm-hmm. It's a pretty a pretty fast entry to pit lane too. Once you get around that first corner, it's pretty much foot to the floor for a bit in these little Miatas.
Where does Tom go on that lap? He's still 15th at the moment, and he's starting his final of the 4 laps. That's about where most people are in it. Timon Bramley just crossing start-finish line now. Ken Copeland's about a lap behind where everyone else is, so he'll be one of the last drivers setting times as well. And Bramley went to 2nd, and Copeland's in 3rd at the moment.
Yeah, Bramley putting in a good time, as we've come to expect from him. Yeah, but also note that he did a very slow lap on his 3rd one, so this will be a true cool-down lap for him. He's done a true cool-down lap, so this will be a true push lap for him, as we see him kind of cutting that exit of the chicane. And you can really get away with a lot on the right side and on the left-hand side of the track there. That gray paved area is actually in bounds, even though it doesn't really look like it. And that's lit a fire under him. He's purple through 2 sectors. Let's see what the 3rd one looks like.
We're also in a sort of late afternoon as far as the weather is concerned, and it has slightly cooled off a tiny bit as we've gone as well. So I wonder if Ken Copeland being one of the last drivers to line might also help him out a little bit. But for Bramley, he's definitely sort of built up to this final lap, trying to be so precise, very, very precise to the grass and the curbing out of what functionally is the final corner, because the last corner is flat out in these cars, and indeed many. And he'll just point it straight to the famous yard of bricks, the start-finish line on his final lap, trying to take away pole, and he goes to the top, 17 hundredths there over Raspudo, who has completed his last lap as well. Very few drivers have any chance to respond to that. The only ones would be Ken Copeland.
Michael Coates is still running the lap, I want to say. Actually, no, he's just gone and reset, I think. Copeland, Lombardi, maybe Coimbria still out there.
Here is Ken Copeland. He's in 3rd at the moment. Not looking like he's going to be challenged from anyone behind him. So a 2nd row. It's looking good for Ken Copeland. Can he move one forward? Very close between Bramley and Raspudo. Copeland only fractionally ahead of kind of champion-elect Ronnie Coates as well. 0.03 of a second between their times, splitting 3rd and 4th. If you want to look at some live timing, HJBC.live has our live timing for this and everything else we broadcast at Spec-5 World Tour right now. Ken Copeland crosses the line, looking to improve. He finds himself basically just half a tenth. He remains 3rd, but did improve on his final lap.
Yeah, the only guy we saw really running that tight inside line on the exit. And we're following along now with Ray Lombardi, one of our last guys out on track in the qualifying session here. This little chicane here at the end of the lap can pose some challenges. It's because you're kind of on the banking while you're braking, and then you've got to get down to the curb to make the turn. There's kind of a rough transition. It can be a little bit tricky to get it right. And the temptation is to use all the track, but I'm not sure that in a car like this you really need to be using all the track. We see Ray here weaving down the straight. He's trying to extend it a little bit in order to get a better run down to the first turn. I'd like to imagine.
I'm worried he knows we're watching him, to be honest.
So he's going to show off a little bit? Are we going to see some drift in here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure it was the greatest tyre preparation. He's just gone on to his final lap. So is Rui Coimbra. He's coming through turn 4, through the flat-out back straight chicane. And 16th at the moment for Rui is a little surprising for me. But then I look again at the times and I say, 1/10 of a second would jump him kind of like into 10th. or 11th or so. It's so close at the moment,
Oh.
10th through to about 17th, 18th, and he's so close with those track limits at the moment as well.
Yeah, he charged that corner a little bit, got a little wide on the exit, and looking at his timing screen, I'm seeing the first lap he set a time, the second, the third he didn't, and when I last checked in on him, he was a little bit off the track, so I think he's struggling a little bit with these kind of hot temperatures, greasy tires, but he puts a pretty good line there through the first segment of this last chicane, and does a pretty good job on the exit. But you got to get it back onto the track. So now he's going to try and do the advanced strategy pit entry, I think. He's made it work. Anyway, we'll follow along with Ray as he comes to the line.
Final lap of qualifying for Ray Lombardi. He needs to improve on a 142.8 to make any progress. Currently 15th in the 25 car grid. Will this lap jump him higher? It will. He'll go to 11th with that improvement on his final lap.
And as you talked about, 2/10, and it's a big change for him. He had a couple green sectors in the middle there, and that'll do a lot for you. And he writes the car off at the start finish line to celebrate. And our last qualifier, by the looks of things, will be Lee Martin. Not sure he's going to get to the end of this lap, though, with only 30 seconds remaining. Longtime driver and sponsor, though, in this series.
Yeah, I don't think this gets around. The other driver without a qualifying time at the moment is Gareth Brocklesby. So there's 23 drivers with qualifying times. Lee Martin and Gareth Brocklesby look like they will be without as the clock ticks down. And that is the end of qualifying for the finale of Season 13 of Spec-5 World Tour. It's 90 minutes at Indianapolis Motor Speedway to decide the championship and to close out the season. The front row of the grid will be Simon Bramley and Nick Rice-Puto, Ken Copeland and Ronnie Coates behind. Eugenio Pollicci and Camden Hibbett are row number 3, Michael Coates in 7th. Andrew Gilliland needs a great performance and a miracle, and also a great performance and maybe another miracle to take the Open Class Championship, but it's possible, and he starts on pole in his category, which is 8th outright. Odyssey Adams Jr. is there in 9th, and then Charles Vaccaro sets a good qualifying inside of the top 10 in that final 10th position there. Ray Lombardi, Paulo Coimbra, Jordy Fike, Jose Gonzalez, Sean Hayes, Rui Coimbra, Trevor Roy, Tom Ayton, Josh Olsen, David Stabe, Andy Kosick, Brian Zabelski, and Orlando Herrell are the last drivers with qualifying times. Lee Martin and Gareth Brocklesby may start, but they will be 24th and 25th. Devon, the thing I note right there, what a difference in qualifying for Andrew Gilliland in 8th to Tom Ayton in 18th.
Yeah, that's a pretty big gap. And even with these drop weeks, if you're Gilliland, you're hoping that those guys at the front get a little bit racy and maybe leave the door open to you sneak it up a bit. And honestly, with only a 1/10 of a second separating him, what is that, 2/10 of a second separating him in the podium? I mean, with the draft around here, the big long straightaways, there's a real chance that he could make his way towards the front here. So big possibilities and the chance for a big upset in that open class points race that it looked like Tom had kind of wrapped up maybe a few races ago. And Gilliland's kind of really fought his way back into contemplation here.
Full pace lap around this place, which is 3.9 kilometers long, so 2.2 miles. Not massive, but it's not the quickest pace lap. They were saying that Laguna Seca, similar length circuit, pace car absolutely rips around there at sort of 70 miles an hour. Here it tries to stick to 40.
Yep, pretty show-offy little pace lap. And you won't hear the thunder on this lap. It's the next time by where you'll hear all the cars screaming between the two sets of grandstands there on the pit straight. And seeing a lot of guys kind of weave in and trying to get those tires up to temp. When the track temp is this high, you kind of have an opportunity to really get them into a sweet spot on a pace lap that's like this. As we watch them rolling around on the pace lap here, you'll of course note that some of the drivers are red underlined, some are blue underlined. The reds are our pro class, that's the more experienced class, and the open class is our less experienced class. And then the one with red numbers is our points leader. The one with blue numbers is our points leader in the open class. And if a driver's gone and made a contribution to support this series and to support the wonderful broadcast we get to do for you folks, then they will have either gold, silver, or bronze tag, which has some benefits. Check out the announcements on the Discord to learn a little bit more about that. Voting information channel, correct myself.
A couple of drivers just getting a feel out for that one particular curb at the end of the back straight. One of the places you can definitely make some passes happen here. Don't want to get too much of that curb. You can see a flag in the background there. Shows that the wind very, very mild at the moment. About 3 knots from the southeast.
Or 4 miles an hour, depending which unit you want to use.
I like knots for measuring wind. They do that, right? Like, that's the thing that's done.
I'm a prairie guy. I don't know about those oceans, man.
Right. That's right. It's not called the Canada Cup. It's called America's Cup.
Canada
Pace car is in Devon, and Timon Bramley and Nick Rice-Puto are the front row of the grid. Timon Bramley will have the inside into turn number 1, but it is a long run on the famous front stretch of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to the first corner here. They are packed up so tight. The green flag waves, and they will roar down. They're going to go 3 wide, 4 wide. I think that's Coimbra's side-by-side there. And Bramley will still hold the inside. Rice-Puto alongside him. Ronnie Coates looking all the way around the outside into turn number 1. Not necessarily a bad idea to give yourself that angle through turn 1 and then to the inside of turn number 2. Bramley defends his race lead from Nick Rice-Puto. Ronnie Coates, with that good start, does jump Ken Copeland, and the rest of the field works its way through in the background.
Jose Gonzalez was the big winner out of that start. I think he picked up 6 spots on the start, going from 14th place up to 8th on the lead in that red and black, not a team car, as he was kind of making it 3 wide all the way down the front straightaway. But they're battling through the pack. Things have stayed pretty straight, and then I jinxed it. Ray Lombardi, and who's that? A couple cars get collected here. That's Brian Shabelski. Rui Coimbra was facing the wrong way. Lee Martin, David Staub, Orlando Harrell, a whole bunch of cars all wrecked.
So it all starts with Ray Lombardi, and that is Rui Coimbra. Okay. Weird one. There's so much space there, and they just... Oh.
A big course cut. And then they kind of come together. It looks like Ray isn't aware that there's someone on the outside, maybe. Either way, in the midst of all this melee, Andrew Gilliland's had to take some evasive action, and he's actually lost 7 spots on that start, putting Tom Athon ahead of him. And he had to take a big slowdown by the looks of things as a result of some of that dodging he was doing early on. So all of a sudden our open class points championship is right back to under control. We'll see if Gilliland's able to use some of that pace he had early in qualifying to make his way past Tom Athon here.
On that complete, and one of the big movers is Camden Hibbett as well, up into 4th, but there's little to separate the pack here in a car that always slipstreams very closely, and it's high average speeds around here on the pit straight and on the back straight. So race leaders Bramley and Rice-Puto, are they going to try to form a little bit of a breakaway? We know that Coates in 3rd can be very, very quick. So can Camden Hibbett, who's now also gotten past Ken Copeland from third on the grid back to fifth at the moment, with Michael Coates behind him. Then Eugenio Polici. Jose Gonzalez with that flying start, as you mentioned, and the top 10 is Odyssey Adams and Charles Vaccaro at the moment. So that is a surprising open class by about now, isn't it? Jose Gonzalez now leads the category with Vaccaro in second, Coimbra in third.
Yeah. It got really shook up there off the start. And it is worth mentioning again, this is an hour and a half long race today. So these guys are really going to pay a stiff price for that early, lap one sort of transgression there.
So here comes our leaders down towards turn number one. I'm watching the speed gun, which is 120 miles an hour or so. Just about how quick I've been here.
Yeah. It turns out the Miatas go about the same speed, regardless what generation you get.
I think these corner a bit better than most NAs.
Yeah, until they start bolting, flat floors and big old wings on them, I bet.
Bit more contact, and for Tom Athon, he's been sent around into the gravel, the open class points leader. What happened before that? We're looking at the pack here.
Ooh.
We've got Gilliland behind, and he gets drilled from Geordie Fike, yeah.
Yeah, and there was definitely some contact, but it looked like some contact assisted by some netcode there. That was a big old shunt, and I can tell you that that gravel pit is really rough to get out if I didn't manage to do it when I crashed my car into it. But yeah, that's pretty significant. And so now all of a sudden Tom Aton goes from being well ahead of Andrew Gilliland, his points contender, to well behind him. That's 5 spots back. That could play a pretty significant part of the story that's being told here today.
About to complete another lap. Starting to look like a top 6, and they're starting to catch a little bit of traffic as well. They've got Orlando Herald, Ray Lombardi, David Starb soon to come up ahead.
Yeah, with the early dramas, it'll mean that these guys are coming through some traffic, and it's always a little bit tough to do when you're in a pack without causing any dramas. Luckily, it looks like they're going to get Orlando here in the white car, giving them a lot of space through this turn. Hopefully they can all clear him before the chicane, because that's where the drama will really start. He does a good job of staying out wide.
He does, and Bramley's sitting a little defensive here. Rasputo gives him a bump as they then head to the end of the back straight. So, this really just sort of turbocharges some of the strategy that we've seen out of previous races as far as fuel saving and shorter stops is concerned, because double the length, basically double the fuel drop and some.
Mm-hmm. And double the tire wear. And as I was kind of alluding to, we haven't seen a lot of that, sort of tire strategy coming into play during this series, but it might very well today.
There's a great video on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway YouTube channel of maybe last year, 1 or 2 drivers on cold tires coming onto the speedway, spun up on the pit exit on the warm-up lane, and the kind of machines they've got around here to measure the grip from the pavement and measure the conditions, and they've got everything at their disposal to try to keep the grip levels high around here.
Trevor Roy making a move for 14th place on the inside of Sean Hayes here going into turn number 1. We see him diving down the inside. Kind of tricky to do because you take that inside line and it compromises you so immediately, but we'll see. He might be able to pull a little over-under. Sean does a good job of blocking that off. Up ahead of them, there's 2 wide as well. Gilliland was trying to make a move around the outside of Paulo Coimbra for what is now 4th in the open class. Gilliland's going to need to find a way to make these passes work here if he wants to have a shot at that open championship.
He's got his class leader, Jose Gonzalez, doing mid 142s in the last lap for Gilliland. A bit quicker than that, but assisted somewhat by slipstreaming up to the back of Paulo Coimbra and Josh Olsen, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think he's feeling the opposite though right now. He had to take some evasive action in that right-hander before the big straight. It is really tough to time the move here into a passing move here. Turn number 1's really nice passing opportunity, and so is that last chicane. But you kind of got to get a little bit of help from the guy ahead of you to do it really cleanly without costing everyone a lot of time. We'll see. He's got a good draft here this time.
The end of both big straights is a chicane, so if you get down the inside, you've got to be all the way down the inside. Otherwise, they hold the outside, they got the inside for the next bit off of it as well. Every move's got to be very decisive, and Gilliland will have a look at turn number 1 on Paulo Coimbra. It goes just a tiny bit out wide there, and going through Andrew Gilliland. That's about how you've got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So then next for him would be Josh Olsen, and they're just catching Orlando Herald to put the lap on him like the leaders up ahead have already done.
Gilliland might have to defend here a little bit. Coimbra's getting another nice run up against him. Doesn't decide to drop out for it. This rhythm section's kind of tricky too, because you can really do a lot with the curbs, especially this last curb. It's almost like it's not there. It's so flat. It's kind of surprising when you get out on track.
A little bit of field spread therefore happening as we keep racing. Top 6 is the pack at the moment, with Timon Bramley ahead in Nick Grice-Puto there. As they started, as they've gone on, it's Camden Hibbett who's made the big moves in this group up into 4th, and Charles Vaccaro is potentially dropping back.
Yeah, Vaccaro just got it a little wrong on that last left-hander coming out of the chicane. If you just touch the grass on the inside, he'll spin it real easy, and that's kind of what he did there. He caught it, no damage done, except for the lap time.
Yeah, critically, you saw that group, Josh Olsen, Andrew Gilliland, etc., go past, and all of that for position amongst the open class puts Olsen to 2nd in class and Gilliland up to 3rd in class, and not catching Jose Gonzalez the last lap around, but definitely Gilliland catching Olsen here.
Yeah, Gilliland's got a nice little run here. Not sure he'll be there quite enough, but he's definitely there close enough to scare him. Olsen breaks a little earlier, and Gilliland stuffs it up the inside. That was nicely done. Nowhere for Olsen to go.
They got their roll cages and their mirrors from the same place, Olsen and Gilliland.
Yeah, sure looks like it. The Aussie sponsorship on the side of the Gilliland car, though. Not sure that that Olsen can say the same.
In a parallel universe, there's an RC sales for Mazda parts.
You can kind of see, though, the go-karting experience there for Olsen. You know, you see a guy coming up behind you. Sometimes it's better to just let it happen and then try and, keep up with him rather than racing him too hard. Got his speaking of racing hard, we got Orlando Harrell trying to get out of the way, while Jordy Fike and Charles Vaccaro behind are too wide going into turn number 1. Vaccaro makes a move around the outside of Fike, and it looks like he'll hold it. It's a little bit sketchy. Yeah, as you can see, it's a little bit sketchy when you get the first turn a little bit deep, because all of a sudden you're turning right to go back left.
Thanks, Doc Hudson.
Not that kind, you know what I mean? The slow kind.
Vaccaro does get back in front, even as wide as he ran in turn number 1, but it starts to maybe just drop him and those drivers away from the group in front with Gilliland, Olsen, Coimbra, and Sean Hayes. So yeah, just a couple of little groups there, like your leaders, like led by Andrew Gilliland, and now like this pack led by Charles Vaccaro at the moment. Simon Bramley's led every lap of this race so far, and we expect it to be very much a sort of a pit stop, fuel consumption kind of race. Nick Rice-Puto and Ronnie Coates behind have surely been quite happy to sit within a couple car lengths here.
Yeah, Ronnie Coates is proud.
The lift off the throttle into turn number 1 might almost be more than when I had that sticky throttle here.
And you were, yeah, I think you're right about that. This is definitely a big lift.
And I suspect we're going to see it again. They get very, very similar run through the chicane onto the back straight, absolutely flat out there. So high speed, slipstream in full effect for every single meter down the back straight here.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say Ronnie Coates with those red numbers is just kind of sitting in third place, feeling very comfortable right now. He's got that open class that pro class championship more or less locked up. Just needs to have a decent finish tonight. I think any finish tonight, and he gets there.
I think he's being super strategic as well. He could be 1 car length behind first and second, and he's choosing to sit sort of 4 car lengths back off the bumper of second place and sit, far enough back in third place that he's just a little bit safer, but close enough that he's not letting them get away. Have a look at Nick Rice-Puto this time on the pit straight, because once again, he's super, super close. He's following directly in the wheel tracks of Simon Bramley, and he's probably going to have himself another very big lift about here.
Lifts at the 800 board from what I can hear on board. I think I was braking at the 250 board going into that turn. So to give you an idea, never a bad thing when you get a half kilometer a lift.
There it's numbers in feet, but yeah, I think I was lifting it.
That makes more sense.
500. Braking it, yeah, somewhere 300 if I wasn't brave, closer to 200 if I was.
A little bump draft there, though, on the other hand, as they head down into this turn.
Now, Rice-Puto does look a little more wayward, but he has been in the fuel-saving position all race long. He's put just a tiny dent on the front of that Mazda from the bump drafting. Rear bumpers must be stronger than the front bumpers. The other group has decided to put their boxing gloves on as well. So there's a whole heap of side-by-side racing, and Sean Hayes decided to put the foot down. He's now up into 11th. Josh Olsen and Paulo Coimbra side by side. This is not where we've seen most of the passing take place here, but you can do it, and Paulo Coimbra does. Let's get ahead of Josh Olsen, and then you see the resurgent Vaccaro is immediately onto his bumper as well, with Jordy Fike and Trevor Roy behind that as well. So Vaccaro, after that earliest little half spin, going off track. Coming back through this pack here. Gilliland in a bit of his space all to his own there as well. And he's now only, he is 9 seconds still behind Jose Gonzalez, leader of class.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's you were saying that things are maybe stretching out a little bit, but I got to think it's just people trying to keep up with Andrew Gilliland, because he's kind of flying out there for this phase of the race with relative to the rest of the open class anyway.
Vaccaro had a look at Josh Olsen, made nothing of it. Camden Hibbett had a look at Ronnie Coates for third there, and nothing happened. But you can see this top 6 closing up a little bit closer as Nick Rice-Puto runs wide on his way into the chicane, puts a couple car lengths between himself and the race leader, and maybe signals to Ronnie Coates and Camden Hibbett that it's time to get their elbows out. You can see Ken Copeland and Michael Coates in very, very close there in 5th and 6th as well.
Yeah, the eagle-eyed viewers will also have probably noticed a little cloud of smoke as we were following along with that battle pack around 10th place. And that was actually Eugenio Polici had spun it and lost himself about 10 seconds there. So he's kind of moved himself towards the back half of the top 10 as well. Anyway, following along with our lead pack.
About to ask, do eagles have good eyes? But I'm pretty sure they can like dive into like 20 feet of water and pick up a fish, having dived from like 3,000 feet.
You familiar with the expression eagle-eyed?
Oh, I'm familiar with it, but it just made me think. It's like, is it have an accurate basis in science?
Yeah, no, they see pretty good.
I reckon.
Rice-Puto sees pretty good too. He's seeing those apexes now. Sometimes you just need a little moment to shake yourself up. As we were kind of chatting in the pre-race, I think one of the factors that we identified as a key to a win here was staying focused. You know, there is a real difference in the load on the driver versus between a 45-minute race and an hour and a half long race. Even the stuff that Timon's doing, Timon's doing here, trying to break the draft. That's just a little extra stress on the driver behind.
Now, I remember there being a cone after that chicane, and you had to be back on the pavement before the cone. Now, these guys don't seem to quite be following that rule. They're out on the concrete, and Rambling was leading them one way, leading them the other. But I think he stands 0 to no chance of breaking the toe to Nick Rice-Puto and that group behind. Closed back in. They're within half a second. They're reeling him in. And I wonder if he's not boxing himself into a compromised strategy position here.
That's going to be tough. I'm checking a little deeper in the field. This battle pack 14th and 15th is providing us some action right now. I've got Jordy Fike, who's just gone up the inside of Charles Vaccaro to take a spot away. And then he's bumped the curb. And Vaccaro actually has to check up a little bit to make room. And then ahead of them, Olsen and Paulo Coimbra were actually really close together. Paulo having just passed Vaccaro, now right on the bumper of Josh Olsen. As they come down the front straight here. Real long front straight, but pretty serious corner at the end. Got to make sure you get it right.
Not long ago, it was Vaccaro in this position in the pack, right behind Josh Olsen, pressuring for the position, not getting through, and he's been dropped back. Sean Hayes broke free from this, and he's made his way up to catch Andrew Gilliland here in 10th. So there goes that free real estate for Gilliland.
And the foursome behind him is getting busy again. Jordy Fike now going to have to hold off Charles Vaccaro. Vaccaro gives him a little bump, but not Paulo Coimbra. Coimbra decides he wants the spot from Josh Olsen. He's going to beat him to the apex. We'll see if he can beat him to the next corner. Tough to make this move stick around the outside, and he doesn't. He'll drop back into line here. But a lot of ways to attack that corner there. And a lot of ways to get in front if you can be the first guy to that first apex.
kind of a tough spot to be for Geordie Fike and Trevor Roy as well, because they're watching this open class battle that they're not quite a part of. Josh Olsen and Paulo Coimbra battling amongst that open class, and Geordie Fike just kind of sitting there watching them, and the next cars were positioned for him are a couple seconds further up the road, the yellow bumper of Sean Hayes.
Yeah, kind of tricky. And if you're Fike, you're feeling a little bit of shame maybe for your involvement in those earlier incidents. So trying to give the open class a little bit of space to race maybe. Or at least making sure your overtake is a sure thing.
So, yeah, 13 laps in, seeing Brian Jabelski pit that looks like it could be strategic. The first, well, I think it's strategic for the damage on the front right as well, to be honest.
Yeah, managing the quality of your car is important in a race like this. Bryce Puto actually kind of tickled the wall going into turn number 12 there on the outside of 2 on the regular Indianapolis course. He's still doing a good job of keeping up with Timon, though Timon seems to be trying to break the gap up a little bit.
That's the greatest bit of elevation change that you'll get around here, is there's a little bit of a dip between turns 1 and 2. Almost sort of drainage. Here's Geordie Fike in probably at the early end of the window as well, knowing he wants to clear off a bit of damage if he can.
Yeah, I got to think. I also think doing some napkin math, that if you're stopping around here, that means you're basically 2 full tanks till the end. So he should be good to go to get to the end of this race from here.
Top 6, I think, will go a bit longer into this stint, though. I don't see why you'd pit early out of this pack and lose the advantage that you're gaining from running along with the leader, saving fuel, setting up your strategy and your saving for the 2 remaining pit stops.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And
the only one I guess I could see doing it is maybe Bramley, because for Rice Puto, he's shown he loves the slipstream and sitting in second. Ronnie Coates is pretty comfortable in third. Definitely when you think of Ken Copeland and Michael Coates, they're very, very happy to be part of the lead group here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, with the pace that Timon has, it's an easy place to sit. And he doesn't seem to be even doing that much fuel saving, braking at a pretty centered point and full throttle all the way. Does have a little moment in the first corner there. Just caught the car sliding a little bit. But with track temps still north of 100 degrees, even as the sun comes down a little bit, they're feeling it out there for sure.
Enter scene from stage left was Ray Lombardi, who's already stopped and is not far from going a lap down to this leading group. It's fanned out a little bit more than it had previously. So I'm looking at Copeland and Coates, maybe just struggling to stay on the train.
Yeah, it's a punishing pace out there right now. We set a qualifying lap of 41.5, and Timon's running 42.5s consistently with no draft help. So even 16 laps into this race, he's still got the car pretty firmly planted underneath him.
remember Hayes and Gilliland were quite a way ahead of the pack, and they've been caught, and it's on the pace of Paulo Coimbra.
Yeah, they got things straightened out in that battle pack around 10th place, and all of a sudden, Paulo leading the way drags some folks back up into that battle. If you're Gilliland, you're hating it, because they were starting to make some ground on Lee Martin ahead of them in the pro class. And every position is points critically for that open class. Of course, being classified among with the pro class drivers, passing them is worth something too.
Eugenio Pellicci pits. Again, a little on the early side, but potentially another driver with damage or looking to just shake up the strategy a little bit, because he's not with that leading group like his pace and his qualifying would hopefully suggest.
We've got a car off to the side there. That was
Lee Martin.
Yeah, Lee Martin given a lot of space. It's actually come to a complete stop here at the chicane, which is a little tricky.
The front right is a couple shades of messed up on that car, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. He'd had a hard time getting it going.
And his car was already black and blue, to be honest.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Of course, no one of the leaders is thinking about stopping just yet.
I think Timmons thinking about getting a draft off of Ray Lombardi ahead. See him closely following, closely mirroring that car ahead on the straight.
Highest running driver to stop from 7th now. Odyssey Adams comes in, which is interesting to see. He's followed by a couple of others. Critically, he's followed by a couple of the cars that haven't been running in a slipstream in this opening stint. In that sort of gap between the top 6 and the battle for 10th is where Odyssey Adams and Jose Gonzalez were. And that's kind of critical for Gonzalez, pitting from the open class lead there as well.
We see on the main track there, that's Paulo Coimbra who's got up the inside of Andrew Gilliland. So Coimbra showing that pace that he's found, doing some good stuff and taking spots away and critically points away from Andrew Gilliland there. Now if I'm Gilliland, I'm hoping I can stick to this bumper and get around Sean Hayes ahead.
It's close, but at the chicane, it looks like he'll stay ahead. There's also a bit of a split amongst the leaders. They caught Ray Lombardi, who we noticed they were going to catch, and it's driven a wedge between the top 2 and Ronnie Coates leading that group in 3rd, not far away from everyone needing to pit in as well. So we'll see what happens as they approach pit entry. The leader goes for it. Bramley is in. The other 5 who were slipstreaming him the whole half an hour to this point so far stay out on track, which shouldn't be a surprise.
And you have to wonder if all the North American guys were like, we'll let that New Zealander go and, pit and be all alone for a while. We've been saving so much fuel back here that we can go 3 more laps.
And if he wins, we'll claim him for Australia, just like Pavlova, Hugh Jackman, the list goes on.
You're not allowed to have Hugh Jackman. He's one of our good ones.
Definitely calling dibs. He'll be on a coin soon.
Oh.
So Bramley was the race leader. He was the pole sitter. Led the whole way, watching this stop. It looks like all 4, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a long stop. Not the longest we've seen, but all 4 tires for sure. And they fill these things up, with your regular old jerry cans. So it takes a little bit, and he's off. As I mentioned, one of the longer stops we've seen.
Rasputin's trying to put a little bit of time into the rest behind him with Coates, Hibbert, Copeland and Coates. And he's also got 1 more lap in him. Everyone behind looks like they do as well.
Yeah, surprisingly few takers from the top 6 there. It'll be interesting to see how this overcut pans out for them. We'll get to see what kind of lap times Timmins putting in shortly here.
There's that little undulation, that little drop away between turns 1 and 2. And Nick Rosputo navigates it, but he has been closed up within 1 second from Ronnie Coates, who leads the championship at this point. Just really doesn't want a DNF, I think. That's kind of where we've seen Coates just sitting in third lately.
Yeah, he understands how to win a championship, that guy. He's been consistently points racing throughout the years, taking the wins when they were made available, but always kind of lurking in that top 3, that top 5. And crucially, showing up. Even with the drop weeks, we've got a few drivers with a lot of pace that haven't made it to every single round, and that'll do a number on your points hopes.
Here they go, and other drivers stopping as well, like Tom Athon, who leads the Open Class Championship. Didn't get off to quite the start he was off in this race, and one trip through the gravel, but he's on the lane. And more laps for this leading group. We've got 24 cars that took the start of the race. So far, 14 of them have stopped, and 10 are yet to. I wouldn't be surprised if more of the drivers out of the next pack stop, like Gilliland or Sean Hayes, or any of those that have been running a little punchier, less in line, like our leaders.
Yeah, Tom Athon's gone and taken a stop this time. He's actually pulling away from it. So that's one of our sort of significant storylines. He's taken nearly a 32-second stop, so that's a long one.
Yeah, sure is. Josh Olsen pits from 10th, but still not our leaders yet. Is it this time around for them? Gotta think though, there is a chance of an undercut here from Bramley. He's had enough time and enough laps on those new tires that we'll see if he's actually undercutting rather than just, you know, putting himself into a longer pit stop situation. So we're gonna get the first flying lap out of him. 41.8, very nearly the fastest lap of the race there as well. So he is, gosh, what's that, a second and a half quicker than Rosputo.
Yeah, he's moving
on
out.
one lap, around a short lap. Those new tires are good.
Yeah, that makes a big difference. And it won't take too many of those to make up the difference. And we see Rosputo hit the pit lane. Perhaps listening to the broadcast, got some critical info there. The remainder of the cars stay out on track.
They do. It's interesting. Another different strategy bucket. So Rosputo stops, and then the next 4 carry on. And we can see Josh Olsen resuming the race after a long stop for him of 38 seconds back there in 15th. I think we're going to see the group from 6th on back stop as well. I know Andrew Gilliland is. I suspect some of them are going to follow him. All of them but Trevor Roy, I think. All but Trevor Roy. Sean Hayes in. I hate to criticize, but that's a pretty wimpy pit entry, coming to the pit lane speed limit, 100 feet before the yellow cones.
I was going to say, I think you might have seen some F1 drivers make a move there.
Sebastian Vettel wouldn't hold back.
Mm-hmm.
So we're left now with just 5 cars that haven't stopped. Ronnie Coates, Camden Hibbett, Ken Copeland, Michael Coates, and Trevor Roy at the moment. Typically, running long has been a good strategy in Spec-5 World Tour this season, but with the track temperatures, with the length of the race, that 4-tyre stop really does put you in an undercut position.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also worth considering that these guys might have a shorter splash at the end if they're able to run this as long as they are, and it looks like they're all taking the pits this time. Josh Olson stays out.
I'm ready to criticize the pit entry out of our leaders here. Yeah, Camden Hibbert's thinking what we were thinking a lap ago, but it does squeeze a little bit on your way in there. Here comes the top four, and I'm sure Trevor Roy will follow, and we'll have the first round of pit stops from every driver. Ray Lombardi back there's actually in the pit lane for his second time, which will make it a 3-stop race for him. Is it going to be a bit of a race between these four on the lane then?
Gotta think so. It will be also a race of strategy. It'll be interesting to see who decides to do what here. Timon's shown us that there's definitely some pace available in the tires, but it is a little bit of a wonder if they'll be enough of a pace difference to justify taking them at all the stops. Timon's coming through the last corner right now through turn 14 onto that front straight. Where will these guys file out?
I think it's fair to say after this stop, Bramley will definitely get a little bit of a lead. The question is his race lead after this first sequence of stops more than the splash of fuel disadvantage he's going to be at in the back half of the race? We know the final round of stops will be quicker for those other drivers, but what he's done is he's had a couple of laps on those fresh tires to try to make an undercut, try to break the toe, and get the strategy back on his terms, because that first stint very much looked like everyone from second to sixth were getting an advantage that Timon Bramley wasn't, but now it shakes up a little bit, and the quickest off the lane from that second group is Ronnie Coates. Here's Camden Hibbert rejoining alongside Odyssey Adams Jr. So a long stop from Hibbert and Rice Puto.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I could really blame anything in particular for that. I don't know if that was a late decision on the tires, maybe. A little bit hard to say. But definitely the long way. Other thing is maybe put on a little bit of extra fuel on that stop to try and shorten that final stint even more.
So very, very interesting indeed. Timon Bramley now with almost a 6-second lead. But we know he stopped early. He didn't take quite as much fuel as some of those behind. And it really scatters the pack. I can't help but think some drivers sort of checked, okay, how long do the tires take to change? And once those tires are changed, stop fueling, I'll go back out there. And others have maybe kind of gone and filled the tank off of this first stop, and they're looking at no tires and just a splash of fuel in the final stop, versus I wouldn't be surprised if some of them end up going brand new tires again at the second stop. The shorter first stops might be 4 tires again the second time through. So it opens up a world of possibilities. I'd say that Timon Bramley has a 6-second race lead at the moment, though, and that's not a bad thing to have right now.
Yeah, you never feel bad in the rear view mirror, that's for sure.
So then the closest battle inside of the top 10 is Odyssey Adams Jr. and Camden Hibbert doesn't want to wait there, and Michael Coates might not want to either. They all snook at him. It's a good move to go down the inside and around the outside of turn number 2. They both pick up a spot. Odyssey Adams Jr. goes back into 7th. And Hibbert's definitely got those new tyres in now. Let's refresh our minds on the open class battle then, though, because first round of pit stops through, Jose Gonzalez still leads class and in 8th outright. Paulo Coimbra isn't too far behind him in 9th. Andrew Gilliland, 12th, is 3rd in class. Then Josh Olson, Charles Vaccaro, Tom Athon behind that. Andy Kosick and Orlando Harrell still running. So this isn't the divine miracle that Andrew Gilliland's going to need to win the Open Class Championship, but he does find himself ahead at the moment. And here's Andy Kosick pitting.
Yeah, on the subject of Gilliland, he's going to need a little bit of help. He's only got 4 spots over Tom Aton to try and close down that gap. And by the looks of things, he needs something a lot more like an overall podium to close that gap. So it'll be a tough one for him. That being said, with the drama we saw earlier in this race, there's definitely a possibility that our leaders get it all wrong and stacked up again. It's a track that has a lot of different possible lines, and if you decide to slam a door, there can be pretty significant consequences.
Let's see if we can't get that lap 1 crash into a top 10 Indy charts playlist.
I'll work on it.
Top 10 Indy hits. This is Trevor Roy and Andrew Gilliland, Josh Olson, Sean Hayes. You can just see Charles Vaccaro there as well as they come out into the sunlight towards the braking zone of turn number 1.
Yeah, and as we continue to get deeper and deeper into the evening, that front straight's only going to get shadier and shadier, but I think that the back straights will, and the back half of the track will mostly stay pretty warm. A lot of times the iRacing temperature measures taken at the start-finish line only, so we might be getting some false readings from our decreasing track temperature over there.
Sean Hayes, is he having a look on Josh Olson here? Absolutely, he's in way too deep, and Andrew Gilliland has to take avoiding action. And Hayes runs it onto the grass as well. Gilliland might not be well pleased with that. Super aggressive move from Sean Hayes that would have been an accident.
A lot of respect given by our open points battler right now. Hard to hold off someone that's at the same pace as you, more or less. But despite that, Sean Hayes and Josh Olson make a bit of contact. Luckily, I think Josh will more or less give up the slowdown he's received as he rejoins the track over here. But he's not going to be happy with that yellow car ahead of him.
I see. It's kind of Josh Olson has a little bit of a moment, a little bit of a wiggle, checks up on the outside, and Sean Hayes tracks out into him there. I don't see it as too messy from Sean Hayes, but I think he gives the spot back regardless. It's just a clumsy little lap or so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was no slowdown there. That was just a gentlemanly move from Sean Hayes. So smart play. And meanwhile, we're following along now with Michael Coates, who, along with Camden Hibbett ahead, has kind of fallen off the back of that group of leaders after the pit stop. These two were guys that decided to do more of the full fill strategy at the stop. Nearly 40 seconds of fuel in both these cars that the other guys don't have.
Yeah, I'm trying to work out, exactly where all of the time goes here. Because it's like, okay, Hibbett's stop was 2 seconds longer than Rice-Puto, but he's 8 seconds behind. And Rice-Puto's stop was quite long, but he's only just behind Ken Copeland. And
yeah, that is a little curious, isn't it? Some of these...
What I mean to say is I think the battle for the race win is still between Timon Bramley and Nick Rice-Puto. Because Rice-Puto is 11.5 seconds behind on track, but 10 seconds ahead on fuel.
Speaking of battles...
Maybe even more with how much he saved in the first stint. Sorry.
I was going to say, he's right up on the back of Ken Copeland now and putting pressure on him. And Copeland will have taken a pretty long stop as well. So they'll be on pretty even footing in terms of tires and fuel load right now. But it does look like Rice-Puto wants the spot.
So for Nick Rice-Puto, the question he's got to ask himself is, do I want to sit here and save more fuel again in this stint? Or do I want to make progress, get past last lap for Nick Rice-Puto was his personal best of the race, a 1:41.6, which was quicker than Timon Bramley.
Yeah.
Now he settles back a little bit as he's kind of found himself boxed here behind Ken Copeland. I think he'll want to make this move, and honestly, I think Ken has realized this could be the race-winning car in front of me. Maybe I should follow.
Mm-hmm. And I've actually misspoken there. I'm looking at my timing screen a little closer. Nick Rice-Puto, 10 seconds more fuel on board that car than Ken Copeland. So that is a pretty significant overtake in terms of what the finishing order might look like. And you know what? Honestly, I think if you're Nick, the only reason to overtake Ken at this point is because you think that Ken's not putting down the kind of laps you need. Because I think you're onto something. I think Nick might very well be taking no tires and the least amount of fuel possible for this last stop. Just logically, it's kind of the way you'd play it if you were trying to make those tires work all the way to the end.
I think just key to keep an eye on is the gap between first and third, disintegrating very quickly at the moment, down to 10 seconds. Bramley got traffic. Bramley got a problem. I wouldn't have thought it was closing up that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't look like it's going to be a good lap for him, and it looks like it's going to be a very good one for Nick Rice-Puto as well. Like I said, I think Rice-Puto has 10 seconds more of fuel on board, saved more in the first stint, and will need less at the final stop.
I think what we're seeing right now is just wow, and that was a slow lap, a 44.0 for Timon last time by. I'm not sure what's going on there, but I do wonder if bringing in the tires extra hard with those undercut laps has actually done a little bit of more damage than expected to them for Timon, because his laps are real slow at this point, but also his tires are 5 laps older than the other guys behind him, so he might just be on the wrong side of the cliff too.
And then he's also in position to be able to take new tires again at the next stop, which Rice-Puto wouldn't be able to do without, further penalty, because it's not going to be covered by your second fuel drop based on how much he took the first time around.
Mm-hmm.
It is basically just writ large the two different ways to skin a cat in a 2-stop 90-minute race like this. Do you take a big drop of fuel at the first stop and then have a short second one, or do you try to split it in half and then also see if that half fill and half fill will cover 4 tire changes at both stops?
Well, me and you try to figure out the strategy. Gilliland is trying to figure out a way around Charles Vaccaro again. These two are back together on track again after Gilliland had a slightly shorter stop, but maybe a slightly more dramatic sort of stint. Gilliland's crucially managed to break away from Sean Hayes, though. And still running about 4 positions ahead of Tom Aton. He'll be hoping for more. Yeah. And as I watch him go through there, you can kind of tell when you get a little bit behind the rhythm in that section, all of a sudden you're just out of position for all the corners afterwards. And Gilliland makes up some ground as a result of Vaccaro being a little bit behind. I think Vaccaro's actually made the pass, though, going into 1 this lap.
I mean, Vaccaro's been very, very quick. He's had to come through the field a couple times.
Yeah.
So his best lap in this race has been half a second quicker than Gilliland's best.
But his qualifying effort was behind it. Wow.
Which one pays more points, Devin?
We'll see at the end of the race, I guess. But the other factor here for Gilliland would be fuel. They both had pretty similar stops, and they both had pretty long stops. So, again, doing the logic thing, if you're Gilliland, you might want to be saving a bit of tires and fuels. And the cloud overhead is certainly helping things out. It's kind of an overcast, partly cloudy kind of day out here. And so the track temp chilling out a little bit. almost into the double digits from the triples.
"12 laps now into the stint for Bramley. I have to wonder, with that shorter fuel that he's taken compared to some of the others that have clearly brimmed the tank, like Rice Pudo, like Vaccaro, Gilliland, etc. I wonder if he's not, 5 minutes away from his second stop.
Might very well be. If you were splitting it 4 tires on both stops, you'd probably want to be stopping with around 19 to go, which that would kind of put us in the ballpark of. And for those of you watching the live timing over on HJBC.live, you'll have noticed that Timmons gone and put a 42.3 on his last lap. So whatever happened to cause that 44.0, he's rectified it quickly, and he's more or less back on the pace of the rest of the top 6.
I think I looked at that lap and I couldn't see much on it to say where the time went, but I feel like he lost most of it in the back half of the lap, so maybe could have gotten a slowdown off of taking too much of that very open curb just before here.
Yeah,
that leads you onto the sweeper to then brake on the short chute. Coates has a bit of a wiggle there, and he is being caught by Rice Pudo in third as well. And Rice Pudo took significantly more fuel, like 10 seconds more, and is now only 2 seconds behind on track, which would say that he's caught almost 8.
Yeah, he's moving along pretty well out there. And I think he's getting a little bit of help here from that shadow of a car you see behind him. Ken Copeland giving a good little push down the front straight this time. Rice Pudo, experienced Miata driver, both in Spec Miata and in the Champ Car Series with 9 Lives. So he's no stranger to bump drafting around in these things.
Now, there were drivers who stopped after lap 1 because of the damage that they had as part of the pileup. Mm-hmm. Furthest any of them went was sort of 22, 23 laps. So from an absolutely brimmed tank, I think that's the full extent of your range, which is what I guess we could suggest that the drivers who took 36 seconds of fuel could do. So, ergo, 1.5 seconds of fuel per lap. 26 seconds of fuel for Timon Bramley would be fuel for about 18.
I'm going to need a whiteboard here, but I know who isn't. That's Ronnie Coates, who's hitting the pit lane this time as we come onto the front straight, and he's taking an aggressive approach to that cone as he hits the lane. First of our lead pack to take what is presumably the final stop of the race. And if our napkin math and our dreams have been correct, we got to expect 4 tires here, right?
I mean, that'd make the most sense.
He did run long on the first stint, though, so I don't know if he took right sides the first time. I didn't have notes down for him. We'll see.
It looks like Coates took tires the first stop. I just checked, he's taking them again, so it's not like he thought no tires was going to be the way to go at the first stop and then found himself awfully embarrassed by the speed everyone else was capable of, and that's where he got closed. It was otherwise, so he's just decided to stop a little bit early. Rice Pudo goes up in a second, still within 10 seconds of the race leader. When we think to be comfortable, Bramley would need maybe a little closer to 12 or 13 based on the strategy differences there. Ronnie Coates is going to rejoin the race back in 13th or so, but probably the first driver we can confidently say will make it all the way to the end.
Yeah, he shows off that kind of unique pit exit that we've got here, where you kind of skip the first turn and rejoin on the exit of the second. can cause a little bit of drama if things are close. We'll have to keep an eye out on that.
Wheel work from Rice Pudo out of turn 2, steering into the skid once, twice, thrice. No, again, I've been befuzzled, not turn 2, right at the end of the lap. So he's pushing on. I'm sure he's seen Bramley just up the road here, braking and turning into turn number 1, 9 seconds up the road. He's seen Ronnie Coates stop. And he's thinking, okay, those are the 2 cars I got to cover off. Quick laps here. I'll have Coates covered off. Get closer within the window of Bramley, and I'll have him covered off at this final round of stops as well. Ooh. The big question is, what are the tyres going to be like, Bramley versus Rice Pudo, into the final stint? And what will the track conditions be like at that time as well?
That's the other factor that I think I might have been underrating here, is we're getting down to almost 6:45. Track temps continuing to drop. We might be in a place where by the end of this race, you're not feeling that tire drop off quite the same way you were in the first stint. So I'm excited to see how these pit stops shake out. There's a lot of possibilities on the table here. Bramley, though, is going to have some lap traffic to deal with. Orlando Harrell's been pretty nice to him so far, but he's just up the road here in the white car. We'll see what he does as our leader tries to make his way by. And despite sort of refocusing and finding his way again, Timon is still losing a few tenths a lap to Nick Rice Pudo behind.
I think there's a couple of magic laps in a new set of tyres. And then now we're just seeing the difference between 12-lap-old tyres and 15-lap-old tyres. Rice Pudo's got a couple more tenths in the tyres that are slightly younger. But if you have the chance, covered by your fuel, to put tyres on without paying any penalty in the pit lane, then those couple of magic laps are worth a lot as far as an undercut goes.
Timon gets a bunch of help from Orlando again as he gets way off the line and makes some room. So we'll see them continue on. My dog decides it wants to be part of the broadcast today. We see Jose Gonzalez making a pass on Lee Martin down the front straight. It's a lap, but an important one for our open class leader, who's now up to 7th place, pending the pit cycle. And a quiet race. Sort of feels a bit like the one we saw last week from Jose, where he just kind of went out and quietly dominated the whole way through. I might be thinking a couple weeks back now that I check the point standings, but
definitely got a win, and he's definitely doing well. Still here, 8 seconds ahead of his nearest competition in the open class. But Paulo Coimbra has been cutting his way up through the open field as well as the race has gone on. Vaccaro now 3rd in that class at the moment. If you were going to evenly cut up a 90-minute race into 3 stints separated by 2 stops to get a bit of side-by-side between Ronnie Coates and Andrew Gilliland, is it? Through the chicane. Therefore position because Coates has made his 2nd stop. Yeah, if you were going to cut up 90 minutes evenly, you'd get 30, 30, and 30, and we're inside of that final 30, and Odyssey Adams Jr. pits from 6th.
I was going to say, if you're running it long, you probably wouldn't think about stopping too early. I'm kind of enjoying Michael Coates getting on the back bumper of Camden Hibbett through turn number 1. 2 of them were pretty tight coming through there.
2 drivers that took a lot of fuel at the first stop.
Yeah.
So I think they should still... Oh, okay, Charles Vaccaro, we'll have to check in with him in a second. They should still fancy themselves as racing Ken Copeland because, again, 10 seconds more fuel for these 2. They're 11 seconds behind on track. Vaccaro has maybe even found the wall. He exited very, very quickly from the penultimate corner.
Oh, and that was so unfortunate. He thought he had regained control, but then slid on the exit of that pit lane for the regular oval, and it went left as he was going up the hill. Oh, and that's tough. That's cost him a bunch of time and a spot or two to the likes of Tom Aton and Josh Olson. A couple drivers on the lane.
Battle there. Yeah, Coimbra, who was second in class. You can see Andrew Gilliland find his box. And okay, the car does start to go up on some jacks. Timon Bramley's also in the lane, the race leader for his final stop, looking for his pit crew. And Johnny Fike also coming out of the lane there. So Nick Rasputo carries on and into the race lead with Ken Copeland now going up into second. As Bramley will look for an undercut once again. So as the pole sitter, he's got to go all the way to pit exit to find his crew in the final numbered box. Okay, there go left sides for him. We still expect he'd need 25, 26 seconds or so of fuel in this final stop. Is that only lefts? No, it is rights. Okay, it just takes a second for them to get around, and I jump the gun a little bit, which would make me a horrible pit stop mechanic.
Jose Gonzalez hits the pit lane too, our open class leader, running sixth as it stands, and he'll be rolling down the lane here.
Final stop at 30 seconds from Bramley, so a little longer than his first one. Suggests that he did have to take a little more fuel at the end here than he was maybe expecting to, but we know how good new tires are. For just a couple of laps, you're Superman.
Another little piece of the puzzle here is that depending on how you got your auto fuel set up, you might have if other people are going long, the game might think you're going to do an extra lap when you're really not gonna. So it's a possibility he's overfilled a bit there, but we'll have to see what it looks like on the far side of these pit stops. Ken Copeland and Nick Rice-Puto on the front straight now. Nearly lose a whole lap when you take that stop.
It's a long pit lane. That's kind of the defining thing about it. Copeland gets in just a little bit hot there, and it's also a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit, which is a lot slower than it is on the oval configuration, where it's 60 miles an hour for the oval races. So here's Rice-Puto in a neck-and-neck strategy battle against Timon Bramley. These next couple of laps will be quick on new tyres for Bramley, but we know the final stop could be very quick for Rice-Puto.
Yeah, as the fuel load gets a little lower too, he'll be benefiting from that.
Now, my rough numbers from earlier about the every 1.5 seconds of fuel takes you a further lap in the race would say that his 36-second pit stop last time would enable a 24 lap stint. Ken Copeland's going to stop out of second place, but it means if you wanted to, Rice-Puto could probably go as many as 8 more laps into this stint.
Interesting to see Copeland opting to stop a little bit earlier here. I don't know if this means maybe he's thinking left sides or something like that, because he'll be sorry, I'm getting distracted here by Jordy Fike and Paulo Coimbra weaving back and forth down the front straightaway as they come up on Orlando Harrell, who was already way to the right trying to get out of the way of Nick Rice-Puto. So a little bit of spicy action there, but no, it'll be interesting to see here what Copeland's plan is on the pit lane, as he's still rolling down that lane all the way to the end. Will there be any tires critically going on this car? Looks like left sides for him.
I think that's why you would bring it in a little early.
Yeah.
Is you're like, let's get those new tires on.
But, last time by, Rice Puto managed a 42.6. So even with Bramley running 42 O's, you got to be feeling pretty good about the position you're in if you're going to get to take a stop that's 15 seconds quicker, right?
Now, this lap probably won't be quite as quick. Bramley ran so deep past the apex of turn number 1 there. Compromises your exit of 2 and all the way around to about here.
Yeah. Really easy to do, too. You feel like there's so much room in the braking zone because the exit of turn number 1's so wide. Caught myself making that mistake more than a few times. And Rice Puto's doing everything he can as he comes around the final corner. He's sucking it in tight to the pit lane all the way up the track. Two drivers at opposite ends of the circuit just putting in hot laps against each other. This is the good stuff. "51 seconds at the line last time by, which would not be enough of a gap for Rice Puto by my napkin math, even with 10 seconds of fuel."
Camden Hibbett gets a bit too much grass and he goes for a spin. Michael Coates goes past him, trying to open up the entry of turn 4 a little bit too much. And Hibbett puts the tires on the grass, goes for a big slide.
Yeah, it looked like as he hit the brakes and the weight all transferred to the front, the rear end just got a little light, touched the grass, and there's no grip out there, believe it or not.
Once you've got a little bit of a slide on and you're teetering on that edge, the grass is a big push that will send you around like that. So no chance of saving it from that.
On the open class front, it might look like Josh Olson, Charles Vaccaro, and Tom Aton are leading, but it's actually Jose Gonzalez who's made his final stop running at 12th. Last driver on the lead lap right now as these pit stops cycle through. Tom Aton's actually on the lane right now, taking 2. And we'll see if he takes any more. Interesting. So the only driver we've seen so far taking just 2 tires on the final stop. But might have been all his fuel I had time for.
If it works anywhere, it works here. I do suspect you've got some long right-handers to deal with.
And the drivers deep in the field definitely feeling the pain of no fresh tires. We're seeing some drivers going as high as 45s, even without a spin or any issues. Drivers that were in the 42s, 43s in qualifying.
It doesn't need to be anything too aggressive from Tom Athon to take the Open Class Championship at the end of this race, though. And I suspect that's where something like a 2-tire call comes in. You're thinking, I'd probably go no tires, but I don't need to take the risk. So we'll just take those left sides, even if it adds 1 second to my pit stop. I think I'll get it back, and I think I'll feel a little bit safer. Here's Olsen and Hayes making their run down the pit lane.
Yeah, Olsen was pretty conservative on the left-hander on the entry, but then very aggressive coming to the line. He actually locked him all the way up as he crossed the yellow cone. So be curious to see if that's a factor.
Olsen and Hayes both parked ready for the exit. Olsen taking left-hand sides. Hayes taking left-hand sides. I think we're getting far enough into this race with only 18 minutes left that your fuel drop to get home is maybe not enough to cover all 4, but there's Olsen just still waiting on the fuel before he goes, and Hayes takes all 4. Olsen stopped 23 seconds. Hayes 24.4 and gets all 4 in. So interesting. Camden Hibbett, after that slide, he's going to come in to make his final stop, which means we've only got Nick Rice-Puto, Michael Coates, Charles Vaccaro left to make a stop.
Yeah, and Rice Puto really stretching this thing out. He's still running quick laps, though. 42.3 last time by versus a 42.0 from Bramley. Track temps down to 98 Fahrenheit, continuing to drop as we get closer to 7 p.m. local. And he's hoping for another big cloud in the last 15 minutes of this race, I got to think.
Here goes Camden Hibbett.
Yeah.
17-second stop, showing how late towards the checkered flag we are. It's just a little splash to cover everything off.
Yeah, but even with the 17-second stop, that still put him at over a minute on the lane. And Rice Puto's only got 50 seconds back to Tim and Branley as Rice Puto hits the lane this time by. Aggressive on the entry, well executed. And while I think it's good etiquette to stay in the fast lane, I might actually think about staying on the inside if I was on the sim. Just to try and shorten the roll a little bit. Now where's Timon?
Closing in, last lap at a 142 flat was reasonable for him.
Comes to 11.
To be close. He'll be, I guess, Simon's praying for the sun and Rice Puto's praying for the shade, because that's going to be the key difference between them at the end here is the tyre life. This looks very much fuel only for Nick Rice Puto, whereas Branley put new tyres on just 5 laps ago. And it's racing
13,
down
14.
the pit straight. Fuel still going for Rice Puto. This is a longer stop than I think we were expecting to see from him. 22 seconds, but we just saw Hibbett take 17 seconds of fuel. Hibbett must have been carrying, I guess, a little more on his way in, because he did stop early. There's Bramley in the race lead, further ahead of Nick Rice Puto than we would have expected, and Bramley does have the better tyres on right now.
He does, but with 6 laps on him, it might have taken some good out of them, and Rice Puto did get the chance to cool his down. So there's nothing to say that he won't have a good lap or two out of these before they get warm again. It's still pretty much on here at the front.
So there's one driver left that we're waiting on the pit stop from, and it is Michael Coates. We're not going to get this lap. Interestingly, he's looking to lap Orlando Herald just now down the pit straight, depending on how close he is. With Charles O'Carroll just back there.
Yeah, Herald makes sure it's a sure thing. And as it shakes out, worth checking in on the open class. Jose Gonzalez still leading now from 8th place overall. Paulo Coimbra 2nd place, 11th overall. Vaccaro 12th. But you were saying, I think we're still expecting another pit stop from him. So that means the 3rd place as it runs is actually Andrew Gilliland, who is not that far ahead of Tom Aton. I want to say he's 9 seconds ahead of Tom Aton, but crucially only 1 position ahead. So it's gonna take a real miracle at this point for Andrew Gilliland. Tom Aton sitting pretty. He's sitting in the catbird seat. That's what they say, you know. I don't think you know, but it's okay. He's doing pretty well. Looks like he's going to lock up this championship if he could just bring it home safely.
Race to the checkered flag here between Ken Copeland and Ronnie Coates, yeah?
Yeah, I was just going to say the two of them are getting pretty close together. Coates has got a nice little draft here. Pit strategy hasn't been as kind to him as I think he would have hoped, putting him out in 5th place, but he will be feeling okay. His tires are only a little bit older than those of Copeland ahead. Did we see Copeland take tires? I want to say 2. No, that was Aton.
And then Hayes took 4 relatively late on, and it seems to work. Michael Coates is in the lane. Shortly, Simon Bramley will go back around and into the lead of the race. His advantage over Nick Rice-Buto continues to extend. Those old tyres for Rice-Buto, you don't know how bad they are until you go and load up a heap more fuel into the car as well. And yeah, Rice-Buto a little further off the back of this than you'd like. Looks like 8 laps to go. Bramley leading nicely at the moment.
Yeah, Rice-Buto lost about 4/10 that time by, so it's going to be, like you were saying, an uphill battle. He's throwing it into the corners. Seeing black marks from about entry to apex as he slides the car through. This slick setup really showing itself in the 97-degree weather we still got on track this evening. But he's going to have to find a little bit more in that car if he wants to catch up to Timon, or Timon's going to have to lose a little bit more of the good off of those tires. 10 minutes to go, though.
It's the second place driver, and in the bottom left of screen, we're monitoring the gap to the lead. It's ebbs and flows, but I think the majority of it is ebb as it gets out closer to 4 seconds. This is Ken Copeland, Ronnie Coates.
It's actually going to check in with Trevor Roy running in 10th place.
Because he is just behind Geordie Fike with second in Open Class, Paulo Coimbra behind that.
I was going to say Roy also is having a pretty dang good race here. He's up 7 spots since the start of the race, qualified 17th. And considering he's got, a year and a half on the simulator, he's got to be feeling pretty good about how this little race has gone for him. He'll be putting pressure on Geordie Fike here till the end, I gotta imagine. Haven't gotten to feature him a lot on the coverage this year. But he's actually currently our, what is that, 6th place in the points? So we'll see if we see a bit more of him next year. Side by
Lombardi and David Stabe are going to fight it out over 18th place outright. And it looks like David Stabe is going to come through for that spot. Again, side by side through that chicane. Looks absolutely brutal. The car on the right-hand side always goes for a massive ride, and Ray Lombardi looks to take that as an opportunity to fight back. David Stabe will defend the inside, and there's 10 minutes left in season 13 of Spec-5 World Tour, and they'll race it out all the way to the end as Ray Lombardi comes around the outside of the tight entry to the S's and will then lead them through the next complex of sweeping corners and around to the final complex as well. They'll fight it out all the way to the end.
Has another move here on the outside. Stabe, rather, pushed wide, but he might have the inside here for 13. He does. Ray gets a little bit better of a run. It's tough to hold that inside move if the guy on the outside doesn't want you to. Other way around, it's tough to hold the outside move if the guy on the inside doesn't want you to through that complex. Big draft here, though.
Up against the pit wall to the inside, and everywhere they go, Ray Lombardi's trying to defend the inside line. I think Stabe ought to be able to get around the outside in some of these places if he's feeling brave. Not at turn 1 he won't, though. Might have better looked for the over-under there if he wanted to make anything happen. Another lap goes by, and another time that Simon Bramley extends his race lead in the final race of the season. In the end, it's looking like the tyres have been more important than the fuel
That's
in
close.
These weather conditions in this long race.
It's close. We have seen Timon have some late race issues with his focus, so I'm not going to write that off just yet. But it's looking pretty good. But the battle for the podium isn't quite finished yet. Ronnie Coates is narrowly holding off Ken Copeland as we get into turn 12 here with the two of them. Back through 13, you see how critical that late apex is, and you see that Ronnie Coates got it a little bit wrong, touched the grass on the inside of that curb, and the car slid a bit, and he's lost a little bit of momentum. Ken Copeland's using the draft and that momentum to get a run on him. Hasn't decided which way he's going to go. Decides for the push. Interesting. So he wants to be behind. You got to think, coming down to 7 minutes to go. Not a bad place to be if you can hang with him.
I think if you pass on the last lap at the end of the back straight, you can probably hold from there around to the checkered flag. So if you're counting backwards now, I'd be counting backwards to that point in any of these battles that are going on, like Coates and Copeland, Jordi Fike and Paulo Coimbra, Tometon and Sean Hayes. Now, Trevor Roy was battling someone.
Fight.
And yeah, he had a moment. I think we're about to see it.
Yeah, it looks like Fike got a little bit wrong going into the braking zone for that first part of the chicane. Kind of got the car sliding and then took the grass all the way out of what would be turn number 7 there. Easy enough to do.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we've got Staub here taking a similar experience on the outside of 11 there. He uses the pit lane road successfully to rejoin, but that'll have cost him a few seconds. Luckily for him, though, Ray kind of appears to be caught up behind Odyssey, who I think also had some issues on that last lap. Trying to figure out where exactly. But Ray's right up behind him now. You know what it was is Odyssey drove around the two of them as they were battling because of the blue flags. A little bit of drama unfolding here with 5 minutes to go in the race. And we got a couple battles for the top 5 to bring us home. Michael Coates is right back up on the bumper of Camden Hibbett for 5th place. And then about 7 seconds up the road, Ronnie Coates is going to have to keep holding off Ken Copeland. Luckily for him, I think he's getting a little bit of help as Copeland's still doing big lifts into the corners at this phase of the race.
Yeah, for sure. Still 3 laps to go. So you do get plenty of laps in your time around here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
We don't see the same mistake from Ronnie Coates that time. He keeps it safely off the grass, gets that good run. And if Copeland isn't closer than that, coming to the line on the last lap, he'll have a hard time making the move, even with the draft. A couple splash and dashes at the end here. Orlando Harrell just peeling out of the pits. But the order for Coates and Copeland stays the same.
It does through the opening part of the lap. Staying critically within that car length at the moment. Not all the way out wide on the exit of 4 to then open up the entry through the flat out, but still challenging chicane with that nasty, nasty little curb that's probably bolted down for us today.
Gotta think it's pretty well attached. Luckily, sheer strength on bolts isn't modeled in the sim just yet.
Gosh, yeah, new damage model on trackside assets.
I'm gonna need
Might as well throw out my PC now.
I was gonna say I'm gonna need one of those burnout style money counters on the side for all the turf I take out, the guardrails.
It'd run up quick around here. They this would be some of the most expensive racing grass anywhere in the world.
I believe that. I read the same pre-race notes as you. 2 to go at the line this time for Ken Copeland and Ronnie Coates. Tim and Brownlee still running safely ahead in first place, and he's extended that gap to Nick Rice-Puto all the way out to 6 seconds. And critically, he's put a few lappers. You've got Andy Cossack and Josh Olson between him and Rice-Puto. So Timmons just on autopilot. You gotta take the thing home safely at this point.
In the opening stint, it really looked like Simon Bramley was being out-strategized, but he was playing the rest of them for schmucks as he had the pace, knew he had the pace, and knew the advantage of a good set of clean boots. And that's what he's shown them all since that first pit stop, is a pair of clean heels.
Copeland going for the rehearsal this time, really close through 8 and 9. Trying to get this run through 10. Doesn't quite do it as well as Coates does ahead, though. Now we'll get to see, how does this podium get decided here? Real close for Copeland at the apex that time. Timmons crossed the line, Rice-Puto crosses the line, 1 to go.
You meant to wave it out over the track, but I see what you're doing there, Barney. Final lap of the race, final lap of the season for Spec-5 World Tour. As it sits at the moment, Ronnie Coates, 3rd or 4th. They'd both give him the Pro Class Championship. Tom Ayton, he is also doing enough there, and Andrew Gilliland is only 1 car ahead of him. Not a big enough point swing to wrestle the championship away from Tom Ayton. For Simon Bramley to be a race winner, though, he's only got a couple more corners to navigate cleanly.
Ken Copeland's right on Ronnie Coates' bumper here as they come onto the back, straight in the background there. And now right at the front, Copeland's got a draft here. Looks like he's diving to the inside. Fakes it outside, takes the inside, and as you predicted, goes up the inside at the end of the back straight here. Let's see if he's able to hold it all the way to the line.
Will be tough. We have seen some passing in some other places around the rest of this lap here, but Ken Copeland does go up into 3rd, 15 seconds behind the race leader. One more big braking zone here where you think Ronnie Coates could strike back. For the 90-minute Spec-5 World Tour season finale enduro at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Simon Bramley took the pole position. He's led almost every lap outside of the pit stop window, and he takes the race win at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, 6 seconds ahead of Nick Rice-Puto in the battle for 3rd, though. Ken Copeland doing everything to try to block out Ronnie Coates, and they're going to have a drag race to the famous yard of bricks, and I think Coates has done it. He's struck back, he takes 3rd, and he takes the Pro Class Championship for season 13.
Well executed. Michael Coates tried to time his run to the line, but it wasn't quite enough. Camden Hibbett holds him off for 5th place. And the next battle I think we got on track is between Ray Lombardi and David Staub, as the two of them are tangling through turn number 13 onto the front straight. And Staub's looking for a draft here for 18th place.
Jose Gonzalez not too far behind, looking to take the open class win, and he will out of the final corner to the checkered flag. Winner in open class, 6 positions gained throughout the race as well. Paulo Coimbra will be second in that class. Andrew Gilliland in third, but Tom Ekdon's already crossed the checkered flag in fourth, and that gives him the Open Class Championship.
Yeah, an impressive drive and an impressive season from Tom Ayton, from backwards in the gravel on the exit of turn 3 to 13th place and 4th on the open grid. He's got to be feeling pretty good about that one.
Or maybe he didn't go a lap down on the last lap to outright race leaders, but regardless, a tidy result is all he needed, and it's what Tom Ayton gets. He becomes the Open Class winner for Season 13 in Spec-5 World Tour.
A couple more crossing the line. Saw Sean Hayes, Josh Olson, Brian Chabelsky, Charles Vaccaro. And now we got folks that are down the lap. And we are at the final round.
Let's go and recap then the finishing results. Now that they have all finished, Simon Bramley from the win, Nick Rasputo and Ronnie Coates on the podium. Ken Copeland, Camden Hibbert, Michael Coates, Odyssey Adams, Jose Gonzalez, Jordy Fike, and Paulo Coimbra. It's the outright top 10. Of course, you see blue is the Open Class drivers, red is the Pro Class drivers. Trevor Roy, Andrew Gilliland, Tom Ayton, Sean Hayes, Josh Olson, Brian Chabelsky, Charles Vaccaro, Ray Lombardi, David Staub, and Andy Kosick as the 20. Lando Harrell was a couple of laps down. They're 2 laps down. And then Lee Martin, 8 laps down. I think it's fair to call Eugenio Pollicci and Rui Coimbra retirements. And Gareth Brocklesby was here, but didn't take the start of the race. 90 minutes, double-length enduro to finish up Spec-5 World Tour. And we're going to probably have a couple people to chat with, I reckon. We got race winners, we got championship winners. Devin, let's see who we can grab.
Yeah, I'm surveying the channels right now. We'll see if we can find some folks.
Devin is on that little mission. Any success, Devin? What can you tell us?
I think I had Jose, who was perhaps ready for an interview. How you doing, Jose?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. After an impressive performance at Road America, you come back and you win another one here today.
Yeah, man. I think it was more luck than anything. You know.
I gotta say, from the outside looking in, it looked like a pretty clean race all the way through for you.
Yeah, I mean, I love this track, man. It's one of my favorite tracks. We did a little practice during the weekend, and I didn't get to practice at all until today. I think it was like half an hour before the race started. So I was, racing with my fingers crossed, really.
Well, you better consider changing your driving style to fit those cross fingers on the rim all the time, because you keep having these lucky wins rather. You might be challenging for that Open Championship next year.
Oh yeah, that's definitely what I'm aiming for. Giving the guys a little bit of a preview of what's coming next season.
Well, solid performance. Anyone you need to shout out for tonight?
Yeah, definitely the Not a Team guys. We're always in contact with when they practice. We go over our data and stuff like that. The guys in Spec-5, you guys for the good broadcasting and stuff, man. But definitely, man, everybody that's a part of this whole league.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
From the Open Class race winner, let's get to the Pro Class champion. Ronnie, we've got to give you our congratulations, Season 13 champion.
Ronnie, you there?
He was in the waiting room.
Well, we'll see.
We didn't surprise him. He couldn't have been more ready.
We'll see. I'm thinking.
Apparently not. Maybe we should try to grab the open class champion and get our way back. Someone I will be surprising. I can't scroll far enough.
I think we've got him. Is that Tom?
Yep.
Tom, you there? Well, congratulations, open class winner, championship winner.
Yeah, that's really nice. Wasn't a very good race tonight, but guess it was good enough to hold off Andrew.
Well, I was saying on the broadcast that I stuffed the car into that gravel trap that you did, and I didn't manage to get it out of there. I had to get towed out, but you got out of there pretty cleanly and turned it into a pretty good race.
Yeah, a lot of laps by myself though. 90-minute race, and for the most part, I was doing laps all on my own. A lot of qualifying.
Well, it's less fun, but it was for a good cause. You put together a great season, and you put together a solid race here to lock it down.
Yeah, well, I had 5 wins in a row, and so I'm pretty happy about that. And yeah, it's a real good season. It's really great racing with these guys.
You looking forward to the move up to Pro Class next year?
Yeah, it's about the same. I just take out the drama of the points. I won't have to worry about it next year.
Sounds good. Well, I won't be too surprised if you not a team guys keep putting together performances like this if we see you on the podium in the Pro Class next year.
Yeah, well, not a team is we're doing pretty well, and Jose's back, and Paulo's quick, and so those guys showed me up tonight.
Well, they couldn't show you up on the whole season, and that's what counts at the end of the day.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Well, we're hoping for Jose next season, so.
Yeah, he was just saying that this was just a preview of what was coming.
Yeah, that's right. I believe that to be true. He's getting serious.
Well, you took it serious yourself. Congratulations on a solid season and on a solid recovery drive tonight.
All right, thank you.
Anyway, you need to shout out for today or the season?
Well, I'd like to thank the IRT for all their hard work, and sometimes we put them through more work than they probably like, but on the admin and all their work to make this a great league, and you guys for the broadcast. It's always nice to watch that and see what you guys got to say about the race from your perspective.
It's been a pleasure watching you. I look forward to the next one.
All right, very good.
And I'm hearing from you, Haynes. I'm hearing that there might be is Ronnie's mic sorted out?
Hello, Ronnie. Are you there?
Yes, barely. Yeah, I guess I didn't have to push the talk setup correctly. Hi.
Well, hello and congratulations.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
90-minute race, double the length, double the number of pit stops, and it's not uncommon. We see a little bit of different strategy in Spec-5 World Tour, but it was all over the shop tonight as far as tires, stint lengths, all of that. How did you think you were going to play it going in, and how did it play out in the end?
I had planned to kind of split it up a little more evenly. I just wanted to make sure I was in the pits long enough to take 4 tires each time. That was the big thing. If you ran it too long, you're probably going to lose a little time, or only take 2 tires at the end. So, and then I just saw some guys coming up behind on draft. I was just like, you know what, I might as well just get out of the way. I was looking at the timings, and I called it perfect. I knew I was going to come right out with Sean and Josh, and I was like, well, maybe a little draft actually helped me. I'm out here running by myself right now anyway, so it helped, and then it hurt. So it wasn't that big of a it didn't make a big difference, I guess.
the end of the day, you've got the result that I'm sure you were long awaiting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just consistency. At least I got a few wins too to solidify the championship. So yeah, super excited. It's great. It's awesome.
I was going to say, are you and Ronnie planning anything special? Or sorry, you and Tom rather planning anything special? Two buddies winning the championship, cleaning up the Spec-5 series?
I don't know. I think he's got a spot all figured out for his trophy. He was kind of working on that. I don't think I was looking that far ahead. I was just trying to get a good result, you know. So
no calling off work tomorrow, make it a long weekend kind of celebrations or anything like that. A little more subdued.
A little, I would say so. Yeah, a little more subdued than that. Again, you know, it's really exciting, and there's some guys in here that are so fast. You know, I still wish I was a little more competitive with Tim and Nick tonight, but it was a good finish. That's what matters.
Well, our congratulations go to you once again, the season 13 champion. Does it give you any extra privileges for next season?
You know what? I don't know that it does at all. I don't think so. If there is, nobody's told me.
Choose a track or dibs on car number 1 or anything like that?
I can't remember if they do that here or not. I wish I could have my car 13 actually, but somebody else has it, so I don't need the car number 1 anyway. So maybe
they just put you to the front of the line at the driver signing session.
Yeah, they'll forget by the first race next time.
We won't. Congrats to you once again, and in a couple of weeks' time, I guess we'll be seeing you again for season 14 of Spec-5 World Tour.
Yeah, sounds great. Ought to be fun. Get to take a couple weeks off and and then get back at it, I guess.
And no doubt, before we let you go, there's a couple people you'd like to thank on this auspicious occasion.
Well, for sure, you know what? They're not a team, guys. We've done pretty well. I think there's quite a few nights that I wouldn't have probably put in the practice, but you know, you open up Discord and they're like, "Hey guys, we're putting up a session. You know, where are you at?" And you're like, "Okay, all right, I'll come in and do some laps." And I definitely, at least for myself, the pace definitely comes with practice. So big shout out to those guys, and shout out for Tom. I'm glad he got the Open Championship. I know he's been battling with that. He's had a lot of adversity throughout the season, but good finish for him. Good job,
Ronnie. Thanks so much, and we'll let you go.
Sounds good. All right, thanks.
Well, there we go, Devin. We've spoken to both champions after a wonderful season of Spec-5 World Tour. Every race has been here on HJBC, and we've seen lots, and we've seen, I think, kind of the racing you expect to see out of this type of car. Always pack racing, a little bit of strategy in there, and it mixes that strategy smarts versus the outright pace. I think today it's fair to say for Timon Bramley, the outright pace was the winning move.
Yeah, it was an impressive drive from Tim, and it'll be interesting to see if he can challenge some of the consistency that we saw out of our championship leader or championship winner, Ronnie. And yeah, I got to say, I'm already looking forward to the next season in just a few weeks' time for another season of interesting tracks, tight battles, and the quality racing that only a Mazda Miata can provide.
Yeah, find their iRacing League, find their Discord, because we're not too far away from sign-ups for the 14th season of Spec-5 World Tour, and you will see it here on HJBC. And of course, our thanks go to RC Sales Porsche Parts. Go to rcsales.com for all that is Porsche. RC has thousands of parts available for virtually any Porsche model, providing high-quality service with a personal approach and with worldwide shipping available. You won't need to go anywhere else. Visit rcsales.com today. And that will be all from us, David Haynes, Devin Peters, Michael Derby. Congratulations to the two champions in Spec-5 World Tour Round 13, and we'll see you in not too long for Season 14. Bye-bye.